Welcome to the class Metals and Non-Metals. It is a foundation course for class 8th and 9th and all other competitive exams. Children, we have seen so many materials around us. Do all these materials are alike or different? Observe this one. These are all gold coins. This is simply a charcoal. Both are alike? No. Let us learn how the materials are classified. The materials are mainly classified into two types. One is the metals and non-metals. In this session, we will learn what are the physical properties of metals and non-metals. At the end of this session, you will learn the physical properties of metals and the chemical properties of the metals, physical properties of non-metals and chemical properties of metals. But in this session, you will learn only physical properties of metals and physical properties of non-metals. Let us learn the first property of the metals, appearance. Metals will have shining surface. They have bright shining surface. Observe this one: gold coin, silver coin, and copper, magnesium, zinc. They all will have shining surfaces. So metals have bright and shining surface. This nature is called lustrous nature. So simply we can say that metals have shining and bright surface. This property of the metals is known as lustrous nature. What we call it? Lustrous nature. Observe this one. carbon and paper, wood, these are all non-lustrous because they are non-metals. So non-metals are soft and have dull appearance. They are non-lustrous. So this is one of the important property of metals and non-metals. So their appearance is different. Metals have shining surface. This nature is known as lustrous nature, whereas non-metals are non-lustrous. They have dull surface. They are dull appearance. Let us discuss another important property of the metals. See, metals produce sound. Metals are things made by metals produce a ringing sound when struck hard or dropped. When struck hard or dropped. Observe this bell. Observe this bell. See, example for metals: gold, copper, magnesium, aluminum. We use bells made up of metals in our schools, in churches, in temples. So metals will produce sound, ringing sound when they struck hard or dropped. So examples for that one: gold, copper, magnesium, aluminum. Do the non-metals produce sound? Let us study. Non-metals. See, non-metals do not produce any sound. The non-metals are not sonorous. What is that? They are not sonorous. They do not produce any sound. Example for non-metals: carbon, sulfur, phosphorus, and oxygen, cardboard, and some other materials are considered as non-metals. So they do not produce any sound. They are not sonorous. They are not sonorous. Observe this one: carbon or charcoal. Okay, next one: sulfur powder. This is also a non-metal. And phosphorus, this is also a non-metal. So phosphorus is generally stored in kerosene. Okay, you will learn why it is stored in kerosene later classes. Another important property is malleability. What is that? Malleability. What do we understand malleability? Observe these gold sheets. Observe this one. These are the gold sheets. Next, you will find iron sheets. You will find aluminum foils. Aluminum foils. That is, aluminum metal is made into thin foils. Thin foils. Iron is also made into thin sheets. So, this property of the metal to draw into thin sheets is known as what we call it malleability. What do you mean by malleability? Property of the metals to draw into thin sheets by hammering or something else. So the property of metals beaten to thin sheets is called what we call it malleability. So what do you mean by malleability? The property of metals beaten to thin sheets is called malleability. Non-metals are break down into a powdery mass and topping or hammering. Okay, so non-metals are break down into a powdery mass on tapping with hammer. They are not malleable. They are not malleable. Only metals can be drawn into thin sheets by beating or hammering. Let us learn another important property of the metals: ductility. What is that? Ductility. See, in our homes, you will find conducting wires are made up of, generally, they are made up of copper and aluminum. And many women wear ornaments made up of gold, okay, or silver. The property of the metals which can be drawn into thin wires is called ductility. What is ductility? It is a property of the metals which can be drawn into thin wires is known as what we call it ductility. Example: aluminum wire, copper wire, and gold wires. Okay, gold has the highest ductility property. Because of that property only, gold is used in making ornaments. Let us learn another important property, electrical conductivity of metals. Electrical conductivity of metals. So, metals generally conduct electricity. Generally conduct electricity. Observe this simple circuit, children. A battery, okay, power source, next a bulb and the connecting wires, and a metal is placed as a switch. Okay, so if I place a metal switch, then the bulb glows because this metal is a good conductor of electricity. Now observe this one. Here a man is heating a spoon or iron rod. Okay, see, after some time this heat is transmitted from this end to his hand because this metal transmits heat. So this metal is a good conductor of heat. Okay, so with this experiment, metals conduct electricity can be proved. Here this is a simple experiment to prove metals conduct electricity, whereas non-metals do not conduct electricity. So metals are good conductors of electricity. Because of this conduction property only, see, we use utensils made up of metals, copper and aluminum. Next, we use copper and aluminum wires in our homes for conducting electricity. Non-metals are not the conductors of heat and electricity. Okay, so what do you mean by electrical conductivity of metals? Electrical conductivity is the property of the metals to allow the current to pass through them. So metals are the good conductors of electricity. At the same time, metals conduct heat also. That's why we use vessels made up of metals like copper and aluminum for cooking purpose. Next one, the handles of the utensils are non-metallic, made up of non-metallic substances, because if you use non-metallic substances as the handles to hold the utensils, heat cannot be transmitted to your hand because non-metals are bad conductors of heat. Thank you, children. I hope I made the concept crystal clear to you. Okay, in our next class, we will learn what are the chemical properties of the metals. Thank you for watching my video.